Seems to be, it says there's 1 hour left.
Okay.
Oh, an hour might be a chance to do.
Yeah, I'll try. So, for your benefit, I guess, this is a way to write down sounds specifically so that it's separate from any particular languages, orthography, etc., which we're actually going to get into some of today. And to pronounce that, that says Berkeley. So I'll read it from my copy since it's easier. Berkeley. Brukir, Zep, Zip, Vishka, Hihi, Kretuts, which is a sentence we made up in the language we started making up last class and is only vaguely partially translated at this point, which is fine. Before we continue that, I have actually a few corrections from people online. Actually, I had approximately 170 views of this class over the last week and 17 downloads, which is a fair amount. So a few people remarked on things I should probably correct from last class that I made mistakes, or almost mistakes. For one, I mentioned that it's unusual to have voiceless and voiced sounds together in one cluster. And my computer just died. Okay, so the rest of it's from memory. And evidently it's only really uncommon if both of them have options. Like, for example, English has TS as a cluster, or ST, stop. But we don't really have ZT or SD much, because both of them have operands. However, you have SN and TN, even though N is voiced and S isn't. And various others, or R, for example, in English I believe is voiced. But it goes with a non-voiced because they're compatible, because we don't have an option to make them both voiced or both unvoiced. Another resource that I should probably point you guys to, there's a live journal Conlangs community. If you haven't seen that, you should look at it. It's useful. There's the Conlang mailing list on Brown, Brown.edu server, which is very high traffic and very resourceful. So if you haven't taken a look at it, I recommend you do. And there's the Zompis bulletin board. If you do a search for ZBB, you'll find it. That's all I can remember offhand, and I guess further corrections will have to wait until my computer is repowered, since I've power cable today. Oh well. So today we're going to do some more translation on this sentence and possibly some orthography stuff. Orthography is a writing system. So votes, which should go first? Orthography, votes, more translation, votes. I don't give a damn either way. I'm asleep. Have a seat. Another new person? You're new. Yeah. Okay. We've got 2 olds and the rest of you guys are good. Okay. So actually, let's just do some more translation. The last time so this is one sentence. This is one sentence, and the rest is one big sentence. And we decided that's some sort of exclamation, morpheme, interjection thing. And sheep is dragon, and Vishka is this particular dragon's name. And I think it was decided that this is a sentence uttered by some poor, terrified villager. And that's all we have so far. Last time what we did was just basically make up what this might be and then try to back translate it. So let's actually do a little bit of the reverse today. to start, we've got actually a little bit of a clue to syntax. Chip dishkat probably works together as one entity, right? So in English, you probably wouldn't say, to use a less fantastical version, teacher Lakoff, right? You'd say maybe Mr. Lakoff if that's a title. Or you'd say Lakoff the teacher, which is fairly unusual to be used, but in some situations you might say that. Or, etc. Japanese, however, is much more common to have someone be addressed or referred to purely in terms of their profession. Like, for example, Lakoff sensei, or Lakoff san, or various other appellations I could have. So another thing is this could actually be some sort of adjectival construction where either the dragon is modifying the name or the name is modifying the dragon. Either way. Another thing that we would want to think about is if these two are in some sort of adjective-noun relationship, if we have that sort of relationship at all, then, or it could be a noun-noun relationship for that matter, then do they have agreement in gender, grammatical gender, in tense, in anything else? Many languages have that, many languages don't. So it's up to us. So, for the majority of the class who wasn't there last time, the way around this is just blurt things out. I'm not really a big fan of standing on formality. So, how do you guys think that this should be arranged? Is that just those two?
I was just going to say, not knowing how the process by which this came about.
We made it up.
Okay,
Right.
But how did you go about making it up? Did you make up?
I went around the room, everyone made up one word in succession.
And you just made up a sound?
Yeah, everyone made up one of those words around a circle. And then everyone, in a different iteration around the circle, made up a translation for that. And then we extracted some common elements or some popular elements, and that's what those were.
So the person would give you the sound, and then they would give you a translation?
No, that was two separate steps.
Okay.
First, people made up a sentence one by one in community fashion, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And then translations, and then we filtered the translations.
Oh, okay. Are we supposed to be able to read that?
If you know IPA, yes. If you don't know IPA, then I would recommend you learn it. But this is not the written language, quote unquote. This is just a representation of what it sounds like. And if you don't know IPA, it's really easy to learn. It'll take you like an hour at home.
Really?
Yeah, it's not that hard. Seriously.
Okay. But then isn't there kind of subjectivity on what it sounds like?
Yes, and that's why I'm going to try to be using a few different ways of deriving meaning of going about this, because the way we did do it is definitely going to be prone to a lot of bias on the part of the people making up translations, because it'll remind you of something in your native language or languages. It'll remind you of something you've heard before. You'll think structurally, similarly. For example, if it has 3 words here, then you'll think it has to have 3 words in the translation, where that's far from the truth, etc. But that's just, it's one method, it's a fairly fast method, and we'll be using others. So yeah, that's entirely true. So what do you think then? How do you think that works? Do you know anything about language syntax? Formally or
well, how do I think what works?
Chip lishka. which is the two underlined ones.
Okay. So, well, my intuitive sense would say that that's, you just, I don't know, you say you give the category dragon, then you give the particular name.
The particulate?
No, the particular.
No, the particular. Okay. So that's definitely one interpretation, like category subset or
Yeah.
category member relationship.
Like classroom 2.
Yeah. Any other ideas? No? No? Blank stares all? Do you understand what we're doing? First of all? Yes. Okay, so what are you stopping on? Because the idea here is to get your contributions, and I'm not a lecturer. So what's hard about this question?
I think it's because it's already, the relationship is kind of already given.
How so?
Because we know that that means dragon, and then we know that that means, that's the dragon's name.
Approximately, yeah.
And so, we conceptually, like, we already know what the relationship between the words are.
Yeah, there is a conceptual relationship going there. But for example, there's a few different ways. These could both be just straight nouns. For that matter, we don't have a specific difference between adjectives and nouns declared yet. We might have one, maybe we don't. Maybe this is an adjective, maybe that's an adjective, maybe they're both nouns, and we just put two nouns together if you want to combine their meanings somehow. This could be a category noun and a noun, or maybe this is a separate grammatical category for a proper name. Maybe it's shaped differently because of that. This could be an adjective, noun, adjective. The name could be an adjective that's modifying dragon somehow. What else? There's one of these two words could have some sort of subpart that's indicating that it is a name or that it is being modified. What came up last class was, what is this dragon's gender? Either in terms of its sex or in terms of its self-concept. Since we're nice and PC and we're in Berkeley, we want to distinguish those two or not. Actually, how's that? Votes to distinguish those two things grammatically in this language. Votes for?
I'm consistent.
Votes
That's
against?
maybe, that's maybe.
I'm all for neutral nouns all the way.
Sorry?
I'm for neutral nouns all the way.
Neutral nouns.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
No gender distinction.
No gender distinctions at all? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, it's a neuter dragon. That's fine. Neuter dragon. Not a neutered.
That's a conversation with it, figure out whether it's male or female.
We don't know dragon biology in this culture. Hello, you get a hermaphrodite. Tetramaphrodite? I don't know if that works. Maybe they have 3 genders, 4 genders, maybe it's multiple, whatever. So I'll see if I can let that sink in for a while. The other thing we had was modifying suk. And so this is again some scared villager talking, and translates to something like that. And we decided that it modifies suk. So what could suk be that they're really emphasizing somehow?
Help,
Help?
fire,
Fire?
Dragon.
death.
Dragon again, perhaps? Death? Okay. Is it a verb, a noun,
Would be
somewhere in between, an
imperative.
adjective?
An imperative or,
An imperative. Okay. So,
because he's explaining it. So like help, the blah 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 dragon, like, is
So this is some sort of command. So
Yeah.
I'm strongly commanding you, and then something, dragon, something, right?
Or explanations could have completely different meanings.
How's it?
Well, you could say like, you could yell something when you're really not worried about it at all. You know what I'm saying?
Explain.
Well, like, as long as we're coming up with these different ways of like, analyzing this, we might as well also come up with the ways of saying it. So, if you yell something maybe in this language, you're not really worried about it, but you're just kind of like chill out, like, relax.
I mean,
Like,
so you're just speaking very loudly, but you're still emotionally perfectly calm?
Yeah.
Okay. Like what?
Tourette's.
Oh, okay, so maybe this is how German Tourette's.
Tourette's has Tourette's.
Yeah,
That's the same piece.
Maybe this is a crazy manager who's just randomly ranting, but not really angry. All the crazy people I know who randomly rant are usually pretty angry.
Yeah.
They're not very direct, or they're directed anger. They're just not directed at anything I can see.
Like a pulse.
Anyone, and whatever. But
Yeah.
is that what you mean, or?
No, I don't know. I'm just kind of like trying to avoid the standards.
No, please.
Yeah. That's all I want to say.
Okay. Does anyone else how should I put it, feel him in this sense?
Well, we've got 2 words.
Sorry?
We've got 2 words. It's kind of hard to put a feel on it.
Well, we have the context.
We have
Yeah.
context, we have some idea of what they're saying. How about let's further specify what the overall communicative intent of this particular message is, and then work that into how that would apply to these particular words. Okay? So we've got a villager, they're presumably scared or something, maybe they're totally cool and they like the dragon, maybe, I don't know. But they're talking about a dragon, and they're a villager, and there's some sort of emphasis going on, and they do mention this dragon. So what might they be trying to communicate to who? Suggestions? I don't know. Don't volunteer, and I'll volunteer you.
Maybe since they know the dragon's name, it's not like, oh look, there he is, and that look is that exclamation, he's just talking to someone standing next to him.
Okay.
I say it's like, oh look at the face of the dragon, we gotta run away from it.
I think we are catching dragons as the eggs. The dragon is chasing us. So run.
What was that about Max? Sorry?
The dragon's baby.
Say that again?
I think we want to catch dragon baby.
Okay.
And then the dragon came back see us, and then we said run away. So just
Okay, so we're poaching dragon eggs, and somehow dragon Karen comes back, and this is basically a shit. Okay?
Did we just make up a story?
Yeah. Some specific thing. What is the communicative intent behind this message, and to whom are they talking?
Okay. So you could be saying, look, there's Dragon Z in the sky.
Okay, so sort of like his. Okay.
Maybe the villager is psychotic and is inciting others to kill the dragon. And then, so he
This
can
is
bring it back
psychotic?
home. So you can bring it back home and torture it in his own special way.
His own special way. Okay, so this is like evil mastermind.
Yeah.
Okay, commanding his troops or just rallying support?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he has imaginary
On a
friends.
podium or something? Okay.
I think it's a villager who was out in the field and saw the dragon, has run back to town, yelling it as he's running into the town. Like,
Wolf, wolf.
like It's come, the dragons come, we have to leave, or it's coming
Okay.
for us.
Well, last time I thought it was just a cautionary sentence.
Like a mother talking to their kid.
Or like a maxim among the villagers, like, you
Okay.
don't go here because that's where it's good.
Okay. Danger, dragons, and things.
I think,
Maybe it's a sign.
yeah, it's a sign for a restaurant, and the dragon's a new hip sushi place.
Okay.
And the exclamation is grand opening.
That's fine. We can change the context like that, that's perfectly
Okay,
acceptable.
so I just added, I guess the exclamation mark can denote excitement. So it's probably somebody talking about the new sushi restaurant.
Call it the dragon.
No, but they're serving dragon.
Oh.
This is the particular.
This is like Fugu Plus.
Yeah. This is like the kind of. It's like. This is the good dragon to eat.
Come all, we've got fresh Bishkar sushi rolls. Made from the local dragon. Anyone like? So basically we've got two variants. There's the sushi story, and there's the, oh, I saw a dragon, or there's a warning dragon foot, some sort of thing like that, right? So votes for variant one, sushi.
Come on.
Votes for number two. Dragon's foot. Sushi wins. Okay, sure. So actually, let's go with your version. This is a grand opening of a new sushi yacht. Sure. So this could be on a banner or something. Or maybe the place is called the Dragon Bishkar
Do you want the
after their main meal, their signature dish.
Do I have to make? They serve dragon or they're called dragon?
No, both.
Or both.
Or they could be called the dragon's name and specifying sushi, a dragon sushi. And that's just their name.
They
It's
should-
a particular dragon. that
They're
they
named
serve
after
these.
some particular dragon, and
Yeah.
they happen to serve a dragon sushi.
Yeah, they specialize in it.
There you go. That works too. You like that? What do the rest of you think?
But I thought
Total blanks.
you guys already came up with meanings for each word.
We did, but
Now we're
the thing is, it's sort of a process. The more you quote unquote learn about language, the more you redo it, and it sort of goes to the truth as a limit, I suppose.
Okay, so we're coming up with new meanings now?
Sort of. So we've decided that it's basically a new sushi, or presumably, well, do they have sushi? This is a new culture too, so it's some sort of food made out of dragons. That's the key part.
It's rolled in rice and seed.
And this restaurant, I suppose it's a restaurant, we have the concept of restaurants, is named after this particular dragon. And they're having their grand opening. So,
And you have the concept of grand opening.
yeah, these are all, I should point out, concepts that may or may not exist in another culture. You may not have the concept of going to a different place to buy food that someone else has prepared for you. If you just always make your own food, or you just pick it off the vine or whatever. Though I imagine it's a little difficult to pick dragon meat off a vine. Maybe.
Unless you glue it up and it's
Sorry?
Unless you glue it up and it's scattered on the vine.
I have to vision in my head.
It reminds me of too many whale beaches. Have you seen this? Yeah. They've got a whale beach, they add dynamite, it starts raining whale, and it goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah. It's weird.
This is, look it up on the internet. It's that. Okay. So in this case, we've sort of broken this link. Then, dragon here is referring to the kind of food that they make. And this is the particular name. So it could still modify it in just in a different way. For example, perhaps this means dragon food, or
Or the word in front of it can be sushi.
yeah,
So those two.
yeah, it could be food dragon. Come on in. You were there last time.
No.
No? You're really familiar anyway.
Oh yeah, I know you.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, you were, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we barely have a majority. Barely. I guess I count. Yeah, so, thick, sheesh, could be food dragon of some sort. The other thing you might want to consider is that, do you know what I mean when I say morphology? Nods, shakes, blank stares. Blank stares are not informative. Yes? No? 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 Morphology? Thank you. Response. Good. So morphology is, other than a really complicated subject, is basically parts within words that contribute to their meaning. And languages vary a lot on to what extent they use this. For example, Chinese is a relatively isolated language, which means that you basically have a bunch of words and the way you stack them together affects what they mean, but you don't really change individual words. English is sort of midway. We have, for example, plural morphemes. I can have a cat and multiple cats. Cats is still one word, but the S or the Z sound, depending on what it is, or the Z sound, or is, or whatever, indicates plurality. French has that, and it also indicates gender. The same is also true of verbs. You can indicate gender, number, tense, aspect, mood, etc., 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 etc. on verbs as you like, or none at all. Chinese doesn't really inflect its verbs much at all, and you have to add additional particles if you want that information. So one morpheme that we could have in a word is for nouns. You could have a morpheme or a way of changing the word that changes it from a word describing a thing to a word describing a product made from that thing, or specifically a food product made from that thing. For example, English has two words, cow and beef. In English, this is because we don't like German, and French sounds much nicer. So cow is our nice Anglo-Saxon Germanic roots, whereas bœuf is much more pleasant to eat, as opposed to eating cow. For the vegetarians in the audience, this is all the same. Carrot and this is straight. But for that matter, you could have a difference between carrot, that thing in the ground, and root, that thing on my plate, that you are sort of squicked if you use the other word, like you're squicked if you're told you're eating cow. Chicken, you only have the one. Fish, venison versus deer, etc. So this could be the food form of dragon, for example. And then there's various questions within that of how you get to it. But how do you like that versus the, this is dragon, and then you've got food as a separate word, and you lump them together to get dragon-based food? Votes for it being one word morphologically. Votes for it being food dragon. So much for that. So the other question is then, is this the word for food? Because it might not be. It could be kir, it could be soup, it could be any of these, and then the rest of them might be other things that, yeah, just flirt.
Do you know how to say all of those up there?
Yes.
How do you make the bilabial click? Okay. Can you use that in a word?
Cheap. Cheap.
What? How is that different from a P?
Has aspiration. You have to breathe out when you do it. I can hold my lungs still or breathe all the way out. Whereas pack, and you can't keep saying it because you need your voice. You need your breath.
Well, if you go to limit equals infinity of your breath, you can't say P without breath.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well you can't say the other one without.
Hold your breath and pop.
That's just because you have to breathe.
That sound, that sound you're making is like bilabial.
Oh, felt like air was coming out anyway for some reason.
Yeah, because
Maybe I'm doing
when you lower your jaw, the volume inside of your mouth increases, and
Yeah.
the pressure decreases.
That's what it is.
So, yeah.
What if we make the food, the word that denotes food, the dragon's name?
Sorry?
So the adjective. So it's like cow.
I'm sorry, I don't know. Say that again?
You know how we can make dragon's name an adjective?
Sure.
That can also be what denotes that it's food, right?
How so?
I don't know.
No, sure.
You wrote it out there.
How do you suggest that?
I don't know, like that by calling it a certain kind of dragon, it's implied that you can eat it, or that it's
Oh, okay.
a food form. I don't know.
Unedible.
Or not, yeah. It's not like I'm gonna be offended if
No, but it's still entirely possible. For that matter, we don't have a separate name for restaurant, a separate word yet. We could have the restaurant being called just straight. Lishkar is the name of the restaurant. Or, like, for example, the Bear's Lair. Or you could have, like, Shay Dragon. Where you have sort of another word to indicate that it's some sort of establishment, like Mama's Steakhouse or Mama's Dragon House, something like that. Lishkar's Dragon House. Maybe the guy owns the dragon. Well, he doesn't have to be serving himself. Well, that would be very restaurant at the universe-esque. Have you read Restaurant at the End of the Universe? No? I'm sorry, you read it. There's a scene at the end, sorry to spoil it, or midway, I guess, where there's a cow. This is like at the very end of the universe, time-wise. The universe is about to end, literally, and you've invested, and there's time travel, and so you've saved up a bunch of money, and this cow, who is your server, basically points to various parts of itself and asks what you'd like to have to eat. And then sometime later you get served that. So it could be that sort of a situation, which would make this a little bit more bizarre. Which is perfectly fine, not bad. But it could be like this dragon cannibal, or he's serving different species of dragon. Maybe this is a sentient dragon, and it's serving non-sentients. or vice versa. No, I'm not sure how you have it vice versa.
I think like people eating monkeys, kind of like that.
Yeah. So, like we think they're both the same. We think they're all just dragons, but to them it's important distinction. You know,
That
one's just a
3%.
lower form. Or maybe it's they serve their young because they're not yet sentient. There's a comment about that. If any of you read Schlock Mercenary, that's a reference. Yeah, so any preferences for which word of this means restaurant, if we have any word that means restaurant? Or does this just mean what?
The one with the bilabial click.
Sip? Or zip or chip?
Oh, is that? I thought that was just a no. Yeah, the third to last one.
Zip. Okay. Anyone agree, disagree? Show some reaction. Yes? No? Do you know what's going on?
I feel like Sep and Chip should have something in common with each
Yeah.
Zip and chip? Okay. They are very similar in structure, so in fact they could be very similar words that are being distinguished morphologically, perhaps, again. S and sh is obviously very similar, and e and e is also pretty similar. So it could be the same word in a different form. Maybe repeating it makes it somewhat different.
Dragonery.
Sorry?
Dragonery.
Dragon what?
Dragonery.
Read?
Like a chocolate. Chocolatory. A dragonery.
Sure. Set, cheap. Yeah. So then, would you elaborate that to say if you have other forms, you could say something or something as something e. That phrase makes it a place where it's served. Maybe.
Yeah.
Does it sound like? Seriously, there is no right answer. Don't look at me like you're going to get it wrong or something. This isn't that kind of a class. Seriously. So, for a moment, let's say this together somehow means dragon food restaurant. Or something like that. And then sip means somehow modifies dragon or works together with dragon in order to make it an eating stuff. Okay? So, place, perhaps. Or perhaps
Place of eating.
Sorry?
Place of eating.
Place of eating. So restaurant, quote unquote. Etc. Sorry?
I was gonna say, so when we're making up this language, can we also make up things about the culture?
Of course.
Language is used?
Yeah. Mark would be a cool guy to do more cosmogenesis stuff. But yeah, making up language implicitly.
Like for example, these people who use this language, if they even are people,
We haven't decided that.
may like think that a restaurant is somewhere where you go to eat, but then you have to be killed, like right after you eat. You know,
Like this is best last meal.
Yeah. Yeah, like you can't
Maybe it's
ever
a place
go.
you go to be eaten by a man.
In the Italian, sort of giving yourself
Like
a
that-
cause sense, or
in
is
that-
this like delicatessen? Have you seen the movie Delicatessen? No? Yeah, see it. It's really, really, really weird and really good. I suppose I won't spoil that part for you though.
Is
Just
it at
watch
the
it.
end?
You'll see.
Is it at the end?
It's like midway through.
Come on.
I don't know.
Wait, it's just the middle? It's okay.
Let's just say they're really low on meat. And for some reason, these people are non-vegetarians, although there is a vegetarian mafia in a sense.
Vegetarian.
There's like a vegetarian guerrilla force. I'm not making this up. It's funny. It's really funny. It's really weird. Go see it. Or download it or something. Sorry, what were you saying? So maybe this is a different conception of what we do in a
I was
restaurant.
just thinking of in that book, Brave New World,
Sure.
at the beginning, I think it's that book, at the beginning where he's like, why can't people just choose to die and like go in and they make it real comfortable for you and then they give you, and you have like a menu of like the ways you can choose to die and then
Like
one of them,
those suicide phone booths in
Yeah.
Futurama.
yeah, something like that. Exactly, I think it's the same idea. You can go and you're like, okay, I'll take the lethal injection. And they come in and they
I'll take the rending and quartering, the quick gulp, flambe roast maybe.
they have time for you.
It seems-
We don't have to do that.
No, that's a perfectly valid point, and maybe we can integrate that. Actually, do any of the rest of you care for that idea in one way or another?
What's the idea exactly?
Something like this place where that involves food and going to and dragon. Perhaps is not serving you food, perhaps is serving you to the dragon, or perhaps this is your final meal,
Yeah.
or perhaps you are the meal and you're being asked to choose from a menu of ways you could be served for whatever benefit.
What sauce would you like to put on top of you?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a very sensual experience.
But how about this? It's a suicide place, but then you can't let all that meat go to waste. So you go there and your last meal is the previous victim.
Definitely
I'm sure I
reminds me
like
of
where
Delicatessen.
this is going.
What?
I'm not sure I like where this is going.
Let's perhaps take that slight break and do an aside on orthography, since I said that's what we're doing at some point. So, yeah. So this is going to be a complete tangent, but that's okay. So, what do you guys know about different writing systems? How many writing systems are you familiar with, for one?
What do you mean by a lot?
A lot? You would know a lot. The rest of you.
You mean like languages?
Different languages, different ways languages are written, different sort of categories of writing systems. Like, how many different languages do you know or do you recognize written?
Yeah.
How many?
3.
Okay, what are they?
Italian, Spanish, English.
Okay, so they're all written with the same alphabet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's some differences in how they're pronounced, the mappings of the characters to the sounds isn't the same, right? For that matter, they're not the same in Spanish. Yo voy a la playa is a sort of standard pronunciation, and the funny Argentinian one, sorry, is yo voy a la playa.
Who are you saying sorry to?
Sorry?
Who are you saying sorry
To whoever is Argentinian watching. I just found that accent sort of funny. Does anyone know any non-Romance language? What?
Japanese, Thai,
Japanese, Thai, both good. Okay. Anything else?
Welsh.
Welsh?
bit.
Writing systems, well, Latin, Cyrillic, Hebrew.
Okay, good.
There's Olam.
Sorry?
Olam,
I'm not familiar.
it's ancient Celtic. It's
Oh.
the line with the other lines on it, like this.
Can you,
OGHAN.
can you draw one on the board?
I don't know the language, but I know. Like that.
Is that one letter or a bunch?
This is one letter, that's one letter, this is a letter.
Okay.
In combination of
Notice
one
that.
and four.
What does each represent? Is it like a consonant or a vowel like we would have them, or is it?
It can be both. It's both vowels and consonants.
So each one is one or the other, or each one is both together?
They're one or the other.
Okay.
It's like Latin only.
It's also usually written from bottom to top, which I think is interesting.
Oh. There you go. I did not know that. It reminds me vaguely of Fruthark, which is a runic system, which is pretty simple. But, okay, cool. You presumably can suggest some others? No?
I think all the ones I know have been said. I know a little bit of Egyptian, and I can recognize a lot more. I know a few, I know some Chinese,
Okay,
but everything else has already been said.
that's fine. So, you know English, Japanese, Thai, at least by recognition, yeah?
Well, I'm pretty conversant with Japanese and Italian.
Oh, great.
Like, middly.
Great. So what are the obvious differences in writing systems between those three?
Well, English is an alphabet. Japanese is a mixed syllabary and uses logographs. And Thai is like weird. I think it's the syllabic alphabet,
Okay.
which is, it's just, you know,
Isn't it diacritical?
yeah.
Yeah.
Do any of the rest of you understand what just got said?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. So, what does that represent in English? It's could. That particular sound, right? What does that represent?
Ka.
Okay. You can. Does it represent could? No. Ko? No. Like for example, ka, ko, whatever. You just combine them. In Japanese, it's a different letter. That's called a syllabic because each symbol represents a syllable. Okay. Then there's, if you can read my bad. Do you know
That's child.
how it's pronounced?
Well, there's more than one in that.
Exactly. Do you speak Chinese?
Oh, yeah.
How's that pronounced in Chinese?
In Chinese? Oh, I think that's Japanese. Yeah. In English, that means
It means what?
sun.
Sun?
Yeah, S-O-N.
Oh, okay. Actually, let me write it better. Okay. That's great. So, in Japanese, this is pronounced ko in some cases and something else in other cases. But this is a vaguely ideogram or logogram, which means that it's trying to represent a constant, and then it happens to be pronounced in various ways. One commonality in all of these, this is sort of my pet thing, so, is that they're all written linearly, basically. You can string together a bunch of symbols, and that's what you get. Sometimes you string it together in different ways. This goes upwards. Japanese is sometimes written traditionally like this, right? There are some languages that are written like that, instead of like that. That's called boustrophodon, which is a fancy term based on how the ox plows. So like in a field. So you write something like, if I were writing it in English side to side, so that would be
What systems do you have?
It's not right. I can't think of any off.
That
Then-
do which?
Sorry?
That do which?
That do boustrophodon?
Greek used to.
Greek? Yeah. Very good. I'm not a specialist in Greek, my sister is, but. Yeah. Let's see, what other kinds are there? So that's alphabetic, syllabic, ideographic. Most ideographic writing systems, like Chinese, for example, are actually mixed. Some part of the symbol represents idea or some chunk of the idea, and some part of the symbol represents sound, like for example what it rhymes with. So it gives you a vague idea of both. Another example is, can you write in Hebrew?
I can do handwriting.
You can or can't?
Can't.
Can't.
I can only like read printed text.
Okay, fine. Let's see if I remember my Arabic. Sure. That's ugly, but actually, the prettier version of this is 2 dots. And this is written right to left, of course. 2 dots is just sort of abbreviated with a dash for quickness of writing. This is the first the initial version of a K. This is the medial way to write a T. And this is the final way to write a B. In Arabic, how you write a letter depends on where it is in, not necessarily in the order, but where it is in the sequence. Because you can break in the middle of the word and restart the sequence, and then you have to use the form again. The other thing is, you'll notice K, T, B, no vowels. That's because in normal written Arabic and Hebrew, you don't write the vowels. You would just assume to know which one of the several dozen variants of that triptych, that's probably a wrong word to apply, of that vase, this particular word is going to be. Is this book? Is this a reader? Is this whatever? And you're supposed to just know and pronounce it accordingly. But for some cases, you actually add in the vowels. Like, for example, if you're writing the Quran, or if you're writing for children's literature, or if you want to spell out somebody's name, for example, for a foreign person's name that's not necessarily common, you want to actually write in the vowels, etc. So, this is sort of a basic sampling of the major groups. There are a few others. Do we want to create a separate writing system for this language? And if so, which one of them would it be, or some other kind?
I was kind of curious on the languages that people that we didn't hear.
Oh, which ones?
I don't know, whoever didn't talk.
Did I miss something?
I know
People who didn't
you
say
just
what
wanna
languages
know,
they do.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Okay, so how about just go around and say what languages you're familiar with to any extent?
Yeah,
That works? Okay.
German, French, Russian, and Korean.
All fluent? All
No.
literate?
Yeah.
Okay.
English and very, very bad Spanish.
What is it? English, Japanese, Latin, and I'm working on Irish. And I'm getting to Chinese.
Okay.
Chinese is my first language, English is my second language. A little
Mandarin,
bit,
Cantonese.
Cantonese, and Mandarin also. A little bit Japanese.
Hindi and English.
Indian?
Hindi.
Hindi. Well, yeah.
That's Latin.
Latin?
Yeah.
I took Latin in high school and French at my last college.
Okay.
Spanish, Latin, Greek, Hebrew.
French and German, you can understand some Spanish. That's weird.
It is California.
I already.
Okay. Does
Here
that
again,
answer
I
your
don't know.
You do. Spanish.
Okay. So, it's a pretty good selection.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, what do you think? Which of these should we use, or if any, we can just continue using IPA if it's not a written language? It's entirely possible. I think we decided before that it was written, but we can still use the IPA as its alphabet, for that matter. And then it's going to be entirely, perfectly phonetically regular. Well, relatively speaking. Opinion? Let's just go around here.
I was thinking, actually I was under the impression that apart from making up a language, we were also going to make up a writing system.
Sure.
But
That's what I'm asking now.
if that's not the case, if we're just going to choose from one of the ones that already exist.
No. Those are just sort of examples of kinds of
Like
writing
which model?
systems. So what I'm asking is what sort, if we're going to make a writing system, what kind of writing system is it? Is it alphabetic? Is it syllabic? Is it whatever the hell this is called? I forget. Is it abjad? Yeah. Is it ideographic? Is it something else that I haven't mentioned yet?
Well, in my opinion, just for simplifications, just that maybe it'd be better to do something alphabetic.
Okay.
But I don't know, actually, that's just what I'm familiar with, so I'll give you a way of learning some of it.
That's fine. What do you think?
Syllabic?
For that matter, there's complex ones like Korean. I think Korean is technically syllabic. I'm not sure.
Technically alphabetic. They take the letters and they make
Yeah,
them
it's-
into little characters.
It's weird. I'm probably mangling this, but it looks something like that. I don't know how you pronounce that, but I think that's a real character.
Is that actually breaking complex?
Sorry? Is that right?
I think it needs something else if that wants to be the real character.
Maybe. It's
That's
been a
like-
very, very long time since I took any Korean. And what I took was really, really limited. But basically, each one of those symbols is part of a syllable. Like it's a regular letter or vowel or whatever, and you just write it as one, and then the next syllable, the next and the next.
Like ancient Egypt, hieroglyphics.
I'm not actually very familiar with how the hieroglyphics worked. Are you?
Do you know how they work?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
They
Like I said, if you know more than me, please.
it's mixed ideographic and abjad. So, well,
They
kind
weren't
of.
really placed in any order though.
What?
They weren't really placed in any order.
Yeah, they were. They were in the order that you pronounce them.
When I was studying it, it wasn't really set. Yeah, I don't know if the book I was reading was out of
You
date.
mean the direction? Because the direction,
Yeah.
you can read them in any direction.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
But-
When it was
but-
set in,
But you know which direction it is. You either read it this way and you keep reading it this way, or you read it this way and you keep reading it. So
well,
you
that's why I meant that it wasn't set, universally in their language, that it was always read this way. It could be read either way. Or up and down.
well, it's read the way that it's written, but
Do you mean with, like, the glyphs?
yeah.
Okay. They're
It's-
usually
yeah, it's-
on top of each other though sometimes.
Cough, cough.
but that usually means that's usually a different letter when that happens. sometimes it's the same, but it's usually a different letter when that happens. It means something completely different. It's not the two together. It's another, because they're really all ideograms, but sometimes they're used for their sound and sometimes they're used for their meaning, and you just have to know which one it is. They put determinatives at the end, which sometimes have sounds and some, but usually don't. They just signify the meaning of the word that you just wrote, so you know how to say it.
I've only just seen it as mentioned as a complex.
It's really complicated.
For that means Chinese and Japanese have similar things where you've got kanji that are written differently and pronounced the same. Ni, for example, in Mandarin.
Closest to Japanese.
Or ta, sorry, ta. Ta for he versus she is written differently.
Just
But I remember was. I just remembered. Anything.
It's only like 50 years old.
Anyway, so what do you think? Did I say you?
No, I definitely want to do an alphabet. I mean, a writing system.
Okay.
I'm only familiar with alphabetic systems, so
Well, in Hebrew,
that would,
you can read.
yeah. But I mean, it's if any of those things, it's alphabetic, right?
Hebrew is also an object. It
Okay.
drops the
But
vowels.
it's still, I mean, it's closer to alphabet. It doesn't have symbols representing syllables or words.
Yeah, but it doesn't. The way it deals with vowels is very different. Also, for one word in Arabic, you have a difference between long vowels, which are real letters, and short vowels.
Robots speak without vowels.
You could, well, no, robots aren't going to be speaking without vowels, but you could have, if you want, like, you could have a neutral vowel, or a neutral emotion vowel.
Yeah,
In
like the one
a
for
robotic speech, you would just use all neutrals, right?
Unless you had a soul.
Unless he had a soul, and unless he was just trying to present a particular emotion in a perfectly robotic fashion, that's possible. So what do you guys think of that idea? Dropping the vowels for semantic contrast, but and for the writing system, and putting them back in to indicate some sort of emotional connotation. Just talk.
Could we have like do that like halfway and say like and have like, because that's a whole lot of vowels to not have any meaning, like
Yes.
other than
They
like,
could stack
not
other
the
meanings.
We
grasslands.
could lump some together, like
Yeah.
all diphthongs have this meaning. and
They could have.
all short.
Obviously, if you're going to be dropping vowels and reserving them for some other use, you can, for example, say that vowels on nouns mean some sort of computational thing versus vowels on verbs maybe indicate tense or aspect or mood or something like that. That's possible.
Or I was thinking something more like group them instead of just like vowels, like contrast between like make like say open vowels and closed vowels contrasted.
Okay, so
But
like
within
how
there you can
forward
move
it is
anywhere.
versus
Yeah.
how back it is indicates how good you feel about it. And then
Something.
up versus down indicates some other scale.
Because that way we still have some vowels.
Sure, no, that's possible. What do you guys think of that? Still,
Since we have two votes either way, I figure it's kind of like a compromise.
okay. What?
They're the ones who change
I changed my mind.
Oh, how?
I said no, and now I'm saying yes.
Okay, so
No, I
for this newly modified monster, votes for? Votes for? Votes against? A shrug against? So, that gets voted in. Okay, so the writing system, is it going to reserve some sort of place marker for where the vowel is, or is it going to be assumed that you know where in the word the vowel occurs? Like, for example, tse, it could have, so that's s, vowel p, and the e is just some sort of artifact of whatever the meta data is, right? So how do we know that it's not test or it's pet,
It,
pet,
it could
or
be
etc.
the symbol for,
Like we could have a symbol for vowel.
oh,
That's not specified.
Yeah, that's-
what, to write, to,
Or
There
it could be a
could be-
structural thing.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say, like, you know, we would put the T on top of the S, and then the.
Like
or
sort of
rather put next
have
to
it be chopped up with the vowel being the sort of the dividing line.
Yeah,
Mhm.
The vowel, the space for
so
the
rather
vowel.
than a vowel that goes underneath.
We could,
Did you hear the point where I said just?
yeah, I forgot. I'm not used to that.
That's fine. This is intended to be like discussion, not lecture.
What if, what is it? So did we decide if we're gonna make all vowels non-contrastive or some vowels non-contrastive?
Well, I think we're going with your idea of having it be
Okay.
two scales.
Because we could have like a marker, like maybe a letter for like the contrastive kind of vowel, like whether it's gonna be like
Oh, you mean
like
different
front or
uses?
something, like we're saying like this is front vowel, you know, kind of as opposed to the like whatever vowel it is,
Okay,
and like whatever vowel,
yeah,
you know,
So
that you end
this
up
is a
saying falls into
neutral-
that
it's a
character.
vowel.
Yeah, so we could have like,
Sure,
you know,
that's possible.
and then maybe we could add some like diacritics if we want to for
If you really want to specify.
well, yeah, if you really want to specify.
It's possible. What do you guys think of that?
I like ambiguity, and where you don't know where it says, if you have never seen it before.
Okay, so you
I like
guys
those
want to get
languages.
the connotation.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we going to be modeling our system in aesthetics after Korean? Or some other
Yeah.
system? So it's aesthetically like Korean? Plus, I don't care, whatever, and so on. Okay. So, we've got however many phonemes, I forget. So, how about this? Starting from you, and going this way. Everyone go up to the board and write a letter part. So we're modeling it in Korean, right? So we haven't decided how it's going to be stacked exactly, but each part is going to be basically alphabetic letter. So there's going to be a letter for ch, maybe there's a letter for ts, and one for vowel, maybe subcomponents under that, like you said. Actually, I'll leave that to you since it's your idea. So the rest of you guys make up some sort of symbol for each consonant. And write it on the board above one example of that consonant. Okay?
Is it okay if I go over?
Sure.
We don't have a lot of chalk.
No, there's more. Chalk. How about it? Go ahead. You have to name over vowels. The class isn't over yet, for what it's worth. There's still half an
Yeah,
hour to go. Those people have another class after this one. Okay. Have fun.
I need to see how it is.
Have fun.
Alright, dig.
Are you going? Are you staying? Oh, really? Yeah. Yes. My backpack.
So this class doesn't seem to last very long. At least not most of it.
How so?
Half of it's gone.
No, something like this. I don't know what happened. What? Whatever you want. Yeah.
computer is dead, so.
Here's.
What's that? What's that?
What's
What's that?
that? Got smaller. What?
What's that the table?
Table? Who's what? Oh, that's the IPA chart.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, well, I look at
You're gonna have to print it out.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
That's what it is.
Oh, yeah. That kind of.
So if there are, whoever's left gets to make the rest. So just keep making symbols.
So.
Just make sure you don't like make something that someone else has already made.
So do you guys have any votes? Do we want to distinguish vowels going this way or this way?
What do you mean?
Pick a way. Well, do
In
you want to
terms of front
distinguish
back?
it this way or this way?
You're not you don't mean in terms of how it's physically written. You mean in vowel.
In the language, like which is going to be the category of lump? Is it going to be
Well, how
front, central, and back? or
an
is it
easier
gonna be
question.
Closed and open.
I think an easier question is if we're doing emotional connotation, we've got a good bad scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you do either of the series in the front? Can you do the fronts from top down or the?
Well, we get more options this way because we have 4 variants instead of
Well, it could be
3 this way.
It's infinite. Vaguely. So, for example, what is it? Something like that. So, would that be the scale of one end of that means this is a good thing, and the other end of that means this is a bad thing? Or is it the other scale, which is how back you go? So, or is the one of that is good and the other end of that is bad? What do you think? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, if it's gonna be that systematic, then we probably can't afford to leave out vowels when we write it, because.
Why?
Well, we're going to leave out them kind of. We're going to say where along one way it is, but like the sounds he said, like those would all be written with the same vowel, but like the next set of sounds would be written with a different vowel.
Like you versus all could be 2 different symbols, and just how you pronounce them will indicate your emotional state. Or the other way around for sure. Votes?
So, which way? Anyone?
Get a big vote.
I don't care.
Well, both.
Well, we were using both scales. Which scale indicates
The difference between
Yeah.
words.
how good you like it, how much you like it.
I say frontness.
So
Yeah.
back it's
What was,
if it's front it's good and back it's bad or vice versa.
Yeah.
Okay.
what's going down is going upward?
Say again?
You say 2 words, you and what?
This isn't a tonal thing. This is, for example, you could have the word keek versus cook, or keek versus cock, or keek versus kek versus cock versus cock. And which one of those indicates how much you like it?
We're going to see that how many closed mid vowels.
Not yet.
I'll make one.
But
Just in case we need it.
an exclamation mark?
No. This is the letter that it's going to be.
Okay.
So this is I'm trying to do this thing where we're writing them on top of them, aren't we?
No, yeah, that's right. Is that, was that V's? Somebody?
I put that there.
Okay. That's fine.
I'm not very attached to it.
No, I just wasn't sure whether that was part of the original C's thing. So how are you arranging them?
With the phonemes are close, mid, open.
Close, mid, open. So you're doing one for each level.
Yeah.
Vertically. Okay. Then front and back is an emotional thing. So do we have? Wow, we've got a pretty distinct kind. A is a vowel, so that's under his domain. So did you make up a consonant symbol? Make one up. Something not a vowel. S is free. Ch is free. Sh is free. Yeah, no, it's k. Is it free? K? Do we have a k? Yes, we do. Okay. Make something up.
Is this vowel?
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Ah.
no, that one's in the middle. I guess I better make one for Oh, and that one too.
You can. We don't necessarily have to distinguish it. You can just say that this whole line is one line.
Yeah, that makes something up for this table.
No, it's already made.
Is it? So.
I guess it all depends on how many vowels
Just
you
make
want.
up. Just make up.
How do you physically write it? Yeah.
Is this a vowel?
No.
Okay.
Sure.
Checking. Just checking. Well, in Sanskrit, that's a vowel.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Drives people crazy.
However, actually, we do have some of the continuants being syllabic chords.
The what?
Some of the continuants do act as syllabic chords, at least in theory, like the
Okay.
that and the and what else? I think I don't remember if it
We'll
was
just make them consonants.
Yeah, but they can be treated as vowel nuclei or syllabic nuclei.
Yeah.
So, in case that's relevant.
Yeah, but orthographically, we could just leave them as.
Sure.
I think we should leave them as consonants. Since they can be both.
Yeah.
You need one to write it as a consonant, and if you have a letter for it, you might as well just use it.
You can have it written different ways, right?
Yeah.
Sort of. You've got the consonant and the vowel, even though they're pronounced the same, they're written differently.
Yes.
Not that it exists in Arabic, but. So
Is this for this one? What?
Should I, what were you making? And you say anything?
yeah, anything that's not a vowel
Or already made?
or already make. Yeah.
Actually, why on top of this one?
Do we have
Or
a T?
this one?
Do we have a T? Do we have a TS?
No, we don't have either.
Okay, so it's
Do you want T or TS?
or S.
TS.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so what is it? Is it just a dot?
Oh, yes. Okay, right. The top.
Just write it like right here.
Okay. So do you have an oo? Okay, so you've got a s, so make the total suits. Right? But we're not stringing them together, we're folding them somehow, right?
Yeah.
So make a folded suits.
Well, I think we should ask how we're gonna ask the class how we're gonna fold them first. No.
This is the class.
Okay.
If they're not present, they don't get a vote. Opinions for you guys? How should we fold them? Or stack them together?
What's the difference?
That's neat. So then that does give the vowel pretty high prominence. Right?
Well, the consonant's a dot. So
You could reverse them. Make the E thing that's and the dot and U.
yeah, that might work
Yeah.
better. Dots are useful for kind of form.
They look more like a type of use.
What if you
We can
reverse
go.
which is which?
I know.
What if the ts is the
There we go.
That's still the same thing though, right? So what if it were
If it were like, yeah, if it were.
were the loop, so then something like that.
That's
Possible.
Yeah, dots are good for diacriticals.
They are.
But we have to make sure that we know that the U is between the S's.
Wait.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because this part of the vowel is going to be a regular letter.
We might also want to change maybe symbols for someone. Like for example, that R is really different in sort of shape compared to the other things where we've got like triangle, V, different little loops,
I know if you
etc.
kind of connect it like that, it kind of matches.
What if that's
At least it matches the ones I've been drawing. It kind of looks the same.
Okay.
If that's okay with you,
So
that's your letter.
What's your add?
I haven't yet. He did that one.
Yeah, we've got vowels, so.
I think would be. Let's see. So we have that. So I think I would make it like. Let's see. So that one's that. I think I would make it like that.
So loops instead of terminates?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of like in between the two. Because this one is kind
So
of.
what if
like
we
this
say
one.
that, what if we say that this is actually, so this part of the letter is the R, and then that's your add?
That works.
So this is R.
Yeah, something like that. I wonder if we could do something like Korean, but kind of like Mongolian.
I don't know what Mongolian looks like.
It looks kind of like a vertical curve.
Oh, yeah.
The point is they're all connected.
Yeah.
Can you show me?
But for example, what if we,
It's kind of like what you just did.
yeah, so how would you, for example, do kra?
Let's see. So I'm going to take. And what was was.
Kra? Okay. So this is k,
Mm-hmm.
and we go into.
And then so this is.
So this angled
Or-
thing doesn't matter which way it's facing. So this is.
Well, it
the
was
same as
facing-
that.
Oh, I put it backwards, didn't I?
But it could be the same.
It could be the same.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It is.
You could write it like. And then.
That's still the same.
Yeah. Well, it's that now the R's angled the other way.
Oh, no, I meant like, which part is flat?
What?
Could you change the angle?
Oh, yeah. I think we better leave that one because that handwriting, might be hard for people to distinguish. I don't think they're used to distinguishing that.
Okay, so we've got,
It'd be hard for people.
So that's the vowel K, this angle here, just a straight angle,
Yeah.
is an R. Or is a, yeah.
Yeah, because that one angles the other way.
But then you could just say that different ways of writing.
That happens. In fact, if it's an angle, that might be convenient.
Or if it's, you start going this way.
That was that vowel, but, or wait, was it? Yeah, that's a different vowel.
You can change your vowels.
I can change my vowels.
We're changing everything else, so. I kind of like this version,
Yeah,
just aesthetically.
yeah. It seems kind of easy to write, just.
Yeah.
I could see writing that in a hurry.
So, okay, so we've got that, then hesh, right? So what is ed?
Which one? Here.
So it's loop and terminate, not loop and go in, right?
Yeah.
So he is just a V of some sort.
Is that, I thought it was supposed to be sh. What even is that? Oh, it's CC there.
It's, yeah. And sh, do we have a sh?
We don't have a
No sh, okay. So,
Go away, sh.
Wait, okay, so let me try to get all my vowels straight here.
Yeah, this one has to go to can't do the rest of it.
Okay, so what did I have so far? I had
what is as a loop?
I have that one, and then that one, and then that one. Or no.
Yeah, that's too
And then-
weird.
Something simple.
I wanted something, but you can do simply all of them.
And remember they rotate, so.
Yeah,
And then.
So then,
it's like it's in the bowl. Yeah.
so hesh is, something like that.
I'm gonna put these in the opposite order, actually.
Suk, do we have yeah, it's dots. We've got the U, and do we have a K? Yes. So dot, E, triangle. So the E would go, the dot would go last somehow, so.
Wait. I turned it into a tiny little circle.
Something like that, perhaps? Do we have a tiny little circle?
Well, I turned the dot into a tiny little circle.
No, but do we?
No, we don't have a tiny little circle.
Well, now it is.
Ah, I know. Aha. These as open.
How's that?
Okay, I think I got it. Yeah.
Confused?
Are you confused? I'm staying with.
What?
I'm
What is
staying
the
with.
K?
The K is this
You
guy.
want to add anything?
Oh, yeah.
So K is any triangle. So we've basically got in rotatability. So for example,
It's
the left
reflectable, right?
the leftmost thing is supposed to be a tsuk. The circle / dot is then you've got your E, U, and then you've got the triangle.
So far we have.
Or you could fill it in if you want to be formal, right?
So this is
Tsuk.
swoop, which is that. This right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what about the
Well, that sounds good.
Okay. Do we have a fill it?
We do not.
You can possibly write that multiple ways too.
Yeah. Probably.
We could allow that.
Yeah.
It'd be better that way.
Why not? As long as it has the right sequence.
Well, I decided to group these vowels on the bottom here together. Because that way they'd have the same amount as on the top anyway.
How about a spiral for the
So I got that one there. Well,
Yeah, but that can't come off into another.
yeah, sure can.
Well, it'll look, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Takes a, looks like it takes a while.
Make sure it has enough spirally though, 'cause my novel doesn't.
How about change the dot to a cross?
No, I mean, why go in any direction?
Not easy.
Sorry, what?
Easier. Okay, thank you.
Who,
He wants to change it to a plus.
Yeah.
change what?
His
dot.
His dot.
It's easier to write.
I like the dot.
You like it?
Yeah. Then the plus requires you to take your hand up. Whereas so far, everything we can do can all be done in one
Yeah,
stroke,
plus
which is
because it's hard to draw, but you can just make it a circle.
yeah.
That's what they do in Arabic. That's hard to draw.
Yeah, it's yeah. So
And
so far, we've got. Let's see if we can
well,
do this.
clear up some of the mess.
Um,
Erase this stuff too.
yeah.
The bottom, the
Go
Japanese
ahead.
restaurant.
So rab, what is our R? Is the
It's the angle.
is just an
The
angle.
angle.
Right? So ab is inward. Rab.
So I'll be breaking 2 words.
Let's all write it and see how it looks.
Alright.
What is the
We
regular?
can get all the different possibilities.
I forget. What is your regular R?
It's this bottom one,
Oh,
the double row.
so rab, fish.
Oh wait, this is no longer this because I had to include it with this one.
Is
Because I couldn't think of another way to continue it on the top.
what was it?
Was.
Terminal.
Hold on here. This is closed. This is closed. Or yeah, closed mid. This is open mid. And this is open. And wait. Oh no, this is the line in between. Hold on. I'll write it like this. Okay, so this one is.
Which is that? Open mid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's non-terminal one. Non-terminal loop.
And that. And this one is.
Fish. Suk is. No. Suk. Is a separate word.
It is? Oh, I thought it was tacked on the end of it. So
Could be.
There.
I mean, we could have this whole thing just totally string together and not break words.
Yeah, that would be,
There's no particular reason why we have to,
yeah.
actually.
Let's see.
Tsuk. So tsuk is dot, e, triangle.
Hold on, but now as different.
This is the weirdest looking thing I've ever seen.
What?
This
Closed,
this
open.
letter.
Yeah.
We're gonna like a Valentine looking thing.
And then where does the app fall in that? Is it between those two? No? Okay.
As,
So as now is E for me.
Oh, and
as now in e. I thought as the loop. No, as still the loop.
It is?
Or is,
No.
you're actually distinguishing those two? I think that's too much to distinguish
which?
between the bottom two.
Between this line and this line?
Which one are you putting add with?
I'm putting add with the bottom line.
This add?
Yeah, we're going with the bottom line.
Okay,
And then-
yeah, that's fine. So add is, okay, I guess you're right.
There. That's all the vowels.
So where's an Ka. Ka. Or, Yeah, so it's and are identical.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's okay.
That's fine. What else? What is the next? Kier.
God.
Kier.
Mhm.
So triangle. What is E?
Let me try this.
Triangle, upwards loop, and R is an angle. Okay.
Is this an A, right?
Yes. Sorry?
Another class, I see a number.
If you take a look at the video from the last class, you'll see it.
The video.
Yeah. Or you can look on decal.org.
Oh, but I don't find the same from the decal.
Sorry?
I can't find the same from the decal.
You didn't find what?
Same number.
CCM?
Oh, yeah, sorry, same number.
Well, it's up there now. I don't know when you lost.
Okay.
Uh, but if you haven't seen the video of the last class, you need to watch it.
I was supposed to see take every class.
Sorry?
I was supposed to watch each class.
You have to either come or watch it, yes. What are you doing from home?
It's seriously.
And as for
Is it 2 lines?
the language that
We don't have anything
in my time,
Oh, yeah, 2 people signing
do I, all I'm doing for that is translating the Bible text, I don't.
For now.
Okay, but,
I'll give you some surprise translations later. But
okay, so it won't be like the first time I ever bring it to the class is the last class when you bring it.
Well, my suggestion is that you discuss it on the logic part. And if you want to discuss anything about the language that you're making, obviously, when you go to the class,
Alright, so I'll see you this week.
So is that decided? What is R again? So
Probably no.
yeah, like this.
Yeah.
So
Let's write this all down.
yes, this needs to be written down.
Yeah, I'll write it down.
Can you write it down also?
Should I write it down?
No.
Do you have a piece of paper for me to write it on?
Crap, where's my pencil? Oh, here. Wait.
Where's my pen? Doesn't matter.
Okay, so. This is on that guy.
Here it is. Want a pen?
I have a pencil. You need a pen?
Mm-hmm.